My name is Kamala Chandrakiran, and I'm an activist. I'm a women's rights and human rights activist.
My name is Ruby Kholifah. I've been working with the Asian Muslim Action Network in Indonesia. It is the network among progressive Muslim in Asia. So we've been actually advocating the agenda of women, peace and security in Indonesia.
My name is Badriyah Fayumi. I was steering committee of Indonesian National Congress of Women Ulama, and currently I spend my days as chairperson and steward to our pesantren.
My name is Faqihuddin Abdul Kodir. I am coming from the pesantren tradition, which is a traditional Islamic boarding school. I teach there Islamic teachings, and also I teach in the Islamic University.
I'm Professor Azimardi Azra, CBE, Professor of History at Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University, Jakarta, Indonesia.
In my experience, actually, that the life is very complex if we only see by the perspective of a man, especially in religious understanding. When only men who understand the teaching become not complete.
The women, like men, is a part of civilization of Islam.
To understand such as, let's say, the life of daily life of women, the experience of women, and also the how to educate people and how to bring people into the whole life.
You cannot dismiss the role of women, let's say, in the family first, of course. But at the same time, we need to expand the role of women not only in the family but also in society.
Like being compassionate, for example, is different between women and men. And if we have only men perspective, I think it's not enough.
Women can preach in a quite different way from, let's say, Muslim male ulama.
And we need much more women who lead and also interpret in order to have more complete life and understanding.
In general, the position of women in much of the Muslim world is miserable.
There are so many barriers, so many problems that women faced in their life. There are so many religious understanding who deny the substantive justice for women. And there are so many practice in the society that legitimate the violence to women.
Indonesian Muslim women have a greater freedom if you compare to other part of the Muslim world.
There's actually a long-standing movement of progressive thinking among the Muslim communities in Indonesia.
We recognize the existence and the role of the women ulama in Indonesian history and in Islamic history.
What we call in Indonesia as the middle path paradigm of Islam, the Wasatiyah Islam, middle path, which is inclusive, accommodative, and also tolerant and peaceful towards each other, not only among Muslim but also among Muslim and non-Muslim. So culture of peace, according to the doctrine of Islamic jurisprudence, women are not allowed to be a leader of Muslim community, to be a leader of Islamic political entity. But you can find it in Indonesia. The position of Indonesian Muslim women is a showcase of the position that Muslim women can enjoy in all walks of life, including not only in social, political, religious efforts, but also in peacemaking, of course. Women play a very important role in peace building in the country.
the women in the peace building process is a center.
About us building alliances and coalitions and partnerships and deep trust, actually, of each other.
We cannot separate it, the men ulama and the women ulama, because the problem is the problem for all.
The women themselves, they already have a commonality on how to build strong collaboration in building peace. So with that kind of process, actually the women also will be able to looking at possibility in transformation inside the family, the community, as well as in the larger society. So when you involve women, you actually will be able to looking at the marginalized group inside the community that can bring you more legitimacy and also sustainability of the program. If women not involved in the process of negotiation, is very often proof that they actually experiences during the conflict, as well as the idea in building the post-conflict society will be just forget or even just ignore. But if they are in the process, so you will see they will bring a very detailed agenda on peace building in the post-conflict situations. When the peace talks officially happening, normally just involve like two parties, the government and the armed group, right? The women voices is always missing in that part. So then the women group is trying to scale up and organize themselves to be heard in line with the process that's actually going on in the peace talk. So Acehese women were able actually to raise their voice and bring the agenda into the peace process. So then you will see like the negotiation process is going on by the government and the Aceh Freedom Movement, but the other side also you will see that the women themselves mobilizing their power and also engage with a certain level of negotiation inside the country as well as in international. So then you can see different layers of the process, but will actually going into the same direction and reach and they can actually complete each other.
One of the things that I'm most proud of after 20 years of continuous movement building among the progressive Muslims and the women's movement in Indonesia is this recent last year convening of a national Congress of Women Ulama in Indonesia.
We see that we need a space that in which the ulama, the women ulama, the activists, the women, especially the victims, women victims, meet and discuss with policy makers and discuss and solve the problem together with many stakeholders to solve the problem.
This convening, we call it KUPI, the Congress, has come up with 3 fatwas. And the fatwas have been produced in dialogue between the religious authorities, women ulama, with women victims of violence, as well as women's rights activists from the secular world. This dialogue has produced a fatwa on core issues that are being faced by Indonesian women and the community every day. That's on sexual violence, child marriage, and environmental destruction. So 3 fatwas that come out of a dialogue between faith and lived realities of women. And in a process where the women are convening this new space for women from all around the country to come and take part in that formulation. So it was actually also it was also a process of democratizing the production of fatwa for a common good.
If we have peace, then it's easy actually to go into step of improving the democratization. But if then the agenda will be very different. So we would like the world is really recognizing that gender perspective in security operation is very, very important to be included. Otherwise, the military operation will be very inhumanistic. They are cruel. They don't really, approaching with the human security approach.
We think that the Congress of Women Ulama, like in Indonesia, it must be disseminated in other places in the world. The recognition of women ulama is very necessary in Muslim society, especially in Indonesia, and I think in other places in the world.
The high position of women is very, very important for their future, not only for Muslim community, but also for the world as a whole. We need to give more space for Muslim women, particularly Muslim women ulama, to explain, to teach about Islamic teaching, and of course in relation to social matters, political affairs, and all aspects of life, basically.
So my hope is that the experience in Indonesia, where women ulama have taken leadership in producing fatwa that addresses the inequalities, violence, intolerance that exists in society, that this becomes evidence of what is possible within Islam, and that this can be a source of hope and inspiration for the Muslim world, as well as for the world in general. That religion, there can be transformation from within religion, and that fatwa can be made as a tool for peace building. So I hope that through this event of Rising Women Ulama here in London in the House of Lords, such a respectable space, that we can spread the word about the leadership of women ulama in Indonesia for peace, and that how the Indonesian women ulama have really revolutionized the fatwa for the common good.
While in my experience, in Indonesian experience, especially from the pesantren experience, I think the women leading in peace building, even women leading in the interpreting religious teachings, are not only possible but also inevitable.
I'm very proud to be associated with and to be walking together in this journey with the women ulama and making history. I believe we are making history for Indonesia and hopefully for the world.